A plant exists that shrugs off drought, flourishes in neglected soil, and delivers 7 times more vitamin C than oranges and 17 times more calcium than milk. It outperforms spinach and kale, and its abundance feels almost obscene next to the cultivated fragility we call modern greens. Yet despite outclassing every modern superfood, it has been quietly sidelined by industrial agriculture. If you have never seen it at your local market or on diet lists, that is no accident. Its resilience makes it awkward for processing, packing, and profit. Tonight, we expose the paradox hiding in plain sight. Neglect, for most plants, spells decline. For this one, it is an invitation. When water grows scarce and the soil turns to dust, its leaves do not wither. They double down, thickening and concentrating, taking on a texture and scent that announces resilience rather than defeat. Deep within each cell, stress triggers a chemical surge. Flavonoids, glucosinolates, and rare antioxidants flood the plant's tissues. These are not ordinary defense compounds. In laboratory tests, they lower inflammation, repair cellular damage, and interfere with metabolic pathways linked to chronic disease. Drought, heat, and poor soil are not threats. They are signals that unlock an arsenal fragile crops like spinach and kale simply cannot match. While spinach wilts at the first sign of a dry spell, this survivor draws on reserves built for hardship. Its roots dig deep, pulling minerals from layers where other greens find only grit. Its leaves thicken, storing nutrients that would put a multivitamin to shame. The numbers are hard to ignore. 7 times more vitamin C than an orange, 17 times more calcium than milk, 10 times more vitamin A than carrots. These are not marketing claims. They are the result of a metabolism tuned by adversity, a pattern of responses where glucosinolates spike when weather turns harsh and flavonoids multiply under sun and drought, not careful tending. This is not an accident of nature. It is the product of evolution in landscapes where survival meant outlasting famine and neglect. While commercial crops were bred for uniformity and speed, this plant was shaped by chaos. Every stressor, heat, dryness, hunger, pushes it to become stronger and more concentrated. The result is a green that does not just survive where others fail, it thrives, becoming more potent with every hardship. If you want to reclaim what was sidelined by industrial agriculture, start small. Plant a patch, save a few seed heads, taste the difference of something grown with almost no care. In doing so, you are not chasing a trend. You are remembering an older truth, that abundance can come from neglect, and that food independence can be rooted in resilience. Take a step, plant a handful, and quietly reclaim what was forgotten. Inside a laboratory, Petri dishes are lined with the pulverized leaves of a plant most people ignore. Under the microscope, something remarkable happens. Enzymes responsible for breaking down starch, alpha-glucosidase and alpha-amylase, are blocked in their tracks. In practical terms, this means less sugar is released into the bloodstream after a meal. The effect is not subtle. In controlled animal studies, mice fed a high-fat diet, but supplemented with these leaves gained 18% less weight than their counterparts. Their livers stayed free of fat, and their blood sugar levels remained steady, even as they consumed the same calories. The difference came down to one class of molecules, polyphenols, especially chiampherol. This compound does not just sit in the gut. It activates AMPK, a cellular energy sensor sometimes called the metabolic master switch. When AMPK flips on, the body shifts from storing fat to burning it. GLUT4 moves to the surface of muscle cells, pulling sugar out of the blood and into the tissues where it can be used, not stored. Human trials echo these findings. In a 2020 review covering 7 studies, people who consumed leaf powder from this plant saw significant drops in fasting blood glucose. Some showed improved insulin sensitivity within weeks. This is not a passive source of vitamins. It is a green that actively changes the way the body manages energy. Spinach and kale, for all their nutrients, cannot match this dual action strategy. They provide fuel, but they do not regulate the engine. Here, the evidence is clear. The plant's compounds intervene at every step, from the first bite to the final calorie burned. The numbers are not marketing hype. They are the outcome of chemical warfare honed by evolution, now measured in labs and clinics. What looks like an ordinary weed is, at the molecular level, a metabolic disruptor, rewriting the rules of how food becomes energy and how energy shapes health. If you want to reclaim what was forgotten, start small. Find seed or leaf powder from a local source, plant a patch, and see how resilience becomes abundance. Supermarket shelves are lined with greens that promise health, but their journey from field to fridge is a delicate balancing act. Spinach and kale, the darlings of modern nutrition, demand constant attention from the moment they are harvested. Every step, irrigation, chemical sprays, temperature control, must be managed with precision. Miss a single watering cycle, and spinach leaves collapse into limp bundles. A minor lapse in refrigeration, even for a few hours, and over 25% of fresh spinach and kale lose marketable quality within 48 hours. This fragility comes at a cost. Industrial farms invest millions in drip irrigation systems to keep fields hydrated, even as droughts intensify. Fertilizer trucks roll out before dawn, spreading synthetic nitrogen to force growth in depleted soils. Pesticide rotations are scheduled down to the week, fighting aphids and mildew that thrive in dense, uniform plantings. The harvest itself is a race against time. Leaves are cut at first light, packed in ice, and rushed to refrigerated trucks. From there, the greens must stay chilled through warehouses, distribution centers, and grocery coolers. Any interruption means spoilage, waste, and lost revenue. Economists tally the losses in spreadsheets. Up to 30% of leafy green crops are discarded before reaching a plate, not for lack of nutrition, but because they cannot survive the logistics. The entire system is engineered to protect crops that, by nature, are ill-suited for the journey. The result is a food chain built on constant intervention, water, chemicals, energy, and labor poured into greens that are one missed delivery away from ruin. Spinach and kale are not just fragile in the field, they are fragile in the market. Their value depends on a seamless chain of human effort and industrial infrastructure. Take away the irrigation, the fertilizer, the refrigerated trucks, and their promise of health withers before it ever reaches the table. In this system, abundance is manufactured and perishable, secured only by the next input, the next shipment, the next cold storage unit humming in the background. A plant can be biologically perfect and still fail the test of commerce. In the produce world, profit is measured not just by what grows in the field, but by what survives the journey to the shelf. Moringa, for all its resilience in the wild, falters under the fluorescent lights of the supermarket. Its leaves, once cut, begin a rapid countdown. Within 36 hours, browning and wilting set in, driven by enzymes that break down chlorophyll and polyphenols. By the time most greens would be stacked in a cooler, moringa's fresh leaves are already unsellable. This fragility is not a minor inconvenience, it is a commercial dead end. Spinach and kale command premium prices in part because they can be chilled, shipped, and displayed for up to 2 weeks with minimal loss. Moringa, by contrast, forces a choice: process it into powder immediately or watch it spoil. For retailers, that means expensive logistics with no payoff. For growers, it means a harvest that must be rushed, dried, or wasted. The numbers are blunt. Open seed crops like moringa yield margins below 5%, while patented salad greens bred for uniformity, shelf life, and brand value can return 3 times as much. A patented kale variety can sit for 10 days in a refrigerated case, generating steady revenue. Moringa's window is measured in hours, not days. Mechanization, too, draws a line. Moringa's branching, irregular growth resists the harvesters that glide through rows of lettuce or spinach. Its leaves must be picked by hand, a labor cost that erases the gains of its wild abundance. There is no patent to protect, no hybrid to license. The plant's very openness, its ability to grow anywhere for anyone, undercuts the logic of proprietary seed markets. In an industry built on standardization and control, moringa is a system error, not a business opportunity. Economists sum it up without sentiment. The market rewards crops that fit the machinery, the cold chain, and the intellectual property portfolio. Moringa's biology is its own obstacle, too perishable for the shelf, too unruly for the harvester, too common for a patent. Its abundance is real, but in the modern food economy, abundance without profit is invisible. This is the economics of exclusion, a reminder that what is abundant can be made invisible. If you care about food independence, learn more, grow what will not bend to the market, and share it with your community. In the villages of ancient India, when drought stretched on and granaries emptied, a tree stood that families turned to, not as a last resort, but as a living guarantee against hunger. Leaves plucked fresh or dried in the sun became the backbone of meals when rice and wheat failed. Ayurvedic texts, written more than 2,000 years ago, speak of this plant as Shigru, the miracle tree, praising its power to restore strength and to balance the body's humors. In those manuscripts, moringa is not a supplement or a garnish. It is medicine, food, and protection woven into daily life. On the African Sahel, where the land cracks and the air shimmers with heat, elders recall years when the rains never came. In those seasons, moringa kept children alive. Leaves crushed into porridge, pods simmered in stews, seeds pressed for oil, all parts of the tree found a use. Stories pass from grandmother to granddaughter, how the shade of a single moringa could feed a household, how its roots could purify water when wells ran foul. These are not tales of abundance, but of survival, of a plant that answered when all others failed. During the Bengal famine of 1943, when millions went hungry, moringa leaves reappeared in the markets of Calcutta. Vendors who remembered childhoods in rural villages gathered greens from roadsides and riverbanks, selling them by the handful to desperate families. For many, this was the only green food available, its resilience in the wild outlasting every cultivated crop. British colonial records of the time describe moringa as a native vegetable of unusual fortitude, noting its role in keeping rural populations from starvation. The miracle tree label was not marketing. It was a recognition earned through centuries of hardship across India, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Caribbean. In every place it grew, moringa became the fallback, the insurance policy against famine and disease. Healers used its bark to treat fevers, its leaves to boost nursing mothers, its seeds to clear muddy water. The knowledge was common, passed quietly through generations, not because it was trendy, but because it was necessary. In these communities, moringa was not a superfood, it was a lifeline, as familiar as the sun rising each morning. A handful of seeds pressed into dry soil is often all it takes. Moringa does not demand rich earth or precise watering. Once the risk of frost has passed, seeds sprout in a matter of days, often within a week, sending down a taproot that anchors the young tree against drought and neglect. In regions where rain is rare, a single watering at planting is sometimes enough. The plant's first leaves appear, tender and bright, but within weeks they thicken and darken, ready to be picked by hand. There is no need for fertilizer, no need for chemical sprays or fencing. Moringa grows where it is left alone, showing a quiet resilience and thriving along fence lines, beside roads, or in forgotten corners of a garden. For those with less space, moringa tolerates pots and containers, provided they drain well. Pruning encourages bushy growth, making leaf harvest easier. Each part of the plant offers something: leaves for salads or stews, flowers for tea, pods for curries, seeds pressed for oil. Most people use the leaves, fresh, dried, or powdered. Drying is simple. Spread leaves in a thin layer out of direct sun, and in 2 or 3 days, they crumble between the fingers. Stored in a jar, this powder keeps for months, holding onto its nutrients far longer than fresh greens. A spoonful stirred into soup or sprinkled over rice brings a subtle earthy taste and a surge of minerals and vitamins. There are few barriers to entry. Seeds are inexpensive and sometimes shared freely among neighbors. In climates too cold for year-round growth, moringa can be started indoors and moved outside for the summer. It is not a plant that punishes the inattentive. Miss a week of care, and it simply grows slower. Forget to harvest, and the leaves become more concentrated, not less. The plant is surprisingly forgiving. Yet with all its resilience, moringa is not without caution. Its power to lower blood sugar and blood pressure is well documented. For those on diabetes or hypertension medication, regular use can amplify the effects. Doctors advise monitoring and consultation before adding large amounts to the diet. This is not a warning against the plant, but a recognition of its potency, a living reminder that food, when left to its own devices, can be more than just sustenance. Moringa's gifts are not reserved for experts or the wealthy. Its abundance is accessible to anyone willing to scatter a few seeds and wait. In reclaiming this plant, stewardship becomes simple, less about control, more about trust. The act of growing moringa is not a return to the past, but a quiet step toward independence, a way to restore what was once common knowledge, now hidden in plain sight. Plant a few seeds. Reclaim this practical abundance. Modern agriculture designs crops for global supply chains, and our plates reflect that choice. At the same time, a plant like moringa, biologically superior and astonishingly resilient, is sidelined by what the market cannot package or ship. As droughts arrive and distribution falters, the knowledge we abandon becomes the abundance we forfeit. Picture leaves that thrive on poor soil, roots that hold the earth, and nutrients that persist where refrigeration and trucks do not. This is not romantic memory. It is a pragmatic alternative. Reclaiming these forgotten foods is not a longing for yesterday. It is food sovereignty, rooted in soil, practice, and ordinary hands, waiting in plain sight. It asks a direct question of modern food systems and of each of us. What will you grow if profit is not the point? Plant one thing, tend it once, teach a neighbor, begin to reclaim what has been quietly waiting.